Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Halton Hills housing update. So I have May numbers to report as well as not a great update in terms of week to week. So let's dive right in. So looking at May's overall numbers, comparing it to last year, we are down, but I think we are sitting in a better spot when we look at the months leading up to this May of 2026. So in May of 2025, we sold 73 units and our average price was $1.162 million. That was only one of 2 months where our average price was over $1 million in 2025. So it was one of our strongest months. So looking at May of 2026, we're down just 5% to 69 units sold, which is a great number compared to the 30 to 50 we have generally been seeing this year. So 69 is telling us that sales are actually picking up. Our average price was only $1,018,000, so that is down over 12% year over year, but that is very much in line with where our numbers have been kind of overall the last 18 months. We have been consistently sitting between $1 million and 1.1, and then we get these odd months where we've had a few over 1.1, but very few, and then a few under $1 million. So we're kind of sitting in our normal pocket, which is nice. So we are down significantly year over year, but I think on average over the last 18 months, we are very much on par with what we've been seeing. We want to see it over that $1 million mark for sure. And so that is good news for this month, even though it looks like we're down versus last year, which we are. Everybody knows that prices this year are down versus last year. But like I said, last May was one of the only months over 1.1 million in 2025. So it overall is okay. There are worse things to report later in this update. So looking at what happened last week in Georgetown, there were 13 sales, which is one of our strongest weeks we've seen literally this year. So it's nice again to see those sales numbers picking up. The absolutely shocking and horrible number is the new inventory that has hit the market this week. We had 30 new listings in Georgetown last week. That is a absolutely massive number. It might be one of the biggest weeks I've ever reported. So in our busy listing markets, last year when things were piling on, it was kind of consistently in those 20 marks. Seeing 30 new listings is very, very bad news for sellers. It also trickled into the other markets. So looking at Acton, we had 3 sales, but 5 new listings. That's a lot for a week in Acton. Glen Williams had no sales and 1 new listing, but the rural market, they had 1 sale, but they had 13 new listings. We saw a ton of new houses come on last week and our inventory has completely skyrocketed because of it. And I was getting very excited because it felt like we were just not having those weeks that were causing our inventory to skyrocket. But this could be the start of it. And that is very worrisome because if we keep this up, we are gonna be right back to where we landed last year. So looking at properties that came off, reduced their price, there were 7 properties that removed themselves from the market and have not come back on, but we really need that number to pick up. If you don't need to be selling right now, you really need to be off the market. We had 12 properties that adjusted their price lower, but overall not enough movement on those terminations to positively impact our inventory level. So all of Halton Hills is up. Last week we were at 225. We are now at 255 active listings. That is very bad news. That came very quickly, and that is not far off our sort of peak of around 300. Another week like last week, and we're gonna be at 285, and then before we know it, we're gonna be at 300. We just hadn't seen a week like this, so I had this cautious optimism that we weren't going to get ourselves in the same position, but this is not good. Georgetown this week is up from 131 to 146, so still not quite near that 170 mark, but again, we are just a week or 2 away from a heavy listing week before we're hitting our all-time highs. I just don't want to go there. It feels like the market should be stronger than it is right now. And like, just seeing that inventory is heartbreaking. So looking at our price points, under 800,000 is up from 22 to 25. So not a huge jump there. Lots of stuff available though. 800 to $1 million is up from 34 to 35. So again, not a ton of jumping in these under 1 million price points, because we are seeing still the majority of sales falling under that million mark. Where we're feeling it is definitely over $1 million. So 1 to 1.5 million is up from 58 to 64 active listings, getting very heavy in that pocket, especially in Georgetown South. So lots of stuff available. 1.5 million plus has also been sitting pretty low, but we are up from 17 to 22 active listings. We had quite a few properties between Georgetown and the rural market come up over 1.5 last week. So it is really hurting our upper end inventory levels. Acton this week is up from 30 to 32. So we are getting to those highs we were seeing last year in Acton. Glen Williams is up from 9 to 10, a high level, but not quite the highest we've seen in the Glen. And the rural market jumped from 55 to 67 active listings. This is getting pretty close to the highest number I've seen. Our record sort of for the rural market is 69 active listings, and we're at 67 now. So terrible news if you are a rural seller. You're gonna have to be softening those prices to make your house a little more attractive. Overall, this was not a great update in terms of week to week. I will say there was some positives that came out of the May numbers, in my opinion, especially our units sold. That is significantly higher than we've seen for most of 2026. So there's a hope that the buyers are starting to become a lot more active. But if we see this inventory continue to pile on, we are going to be right back to where we were in like September, October of last year. And I just can't believe like how quickly how that happened like week to week. So it will be interesting to see what happens in June. Again, if you are a seller who doesn't need to be on the market, it is definitely one of the worst times to sell. So maybe just like take it off till things get better and help us with our inventory levels here. So anyways, I will be back next week. Have a great week, everyone.